Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we're going to talk about what the status correctors and Jefferson have in common. On the thumbnail, you see a different rendered version of Jefferson and Madison, but the reason I put those two figures is because there's a lot in common. Firstly, Jefferson before Madison was thinking in a certain direction, and it was Madison who later realized what he was talking about and then joined up with Jefferson. All right, and it has to do with banking. Okay, so what do status correction, and Jefferson have in common? I'm going to read it to you guys here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, firstly, if you guys are aware, let me light this up. If you guys have been studying, you are aware that status correction is a correction to the United States government. Okay? Even though your living man, living woman status is already protected, okay, naturally, divinely, and internationally, and nationally, when it comes to business with the US, they have you registered, they have that name, that social, and that birth certificate, which is tied to an estate. They have that registered for most people, as they would call it, as a form of collateral. Okay, as a form of property, but you yourself are not property of somebody or something. Okay, now the reason people send status corrections is that so when they are doing and they're coming back into power of what it actually means to be your own bank, for example, issue your own credit, okay, create your own economies, create your own nations, tribes, etc. Well, when you're doing business, okay, the name that's registered, some people either they forget that name totally, so it just disappears, okay, or they apply for something new. Either way, they are setting up and notifying the USA or the United States government agency, government body, okay, because we the people are government, but then you have these businesses, agencies, government agencies, organizations representing something for the people. Because remember, even when the Federal Reserve came to be, it had to be offered. Okay, it was an idea that was offered, and before the Federal Reserve, you had two U.S. banks that didn't last for so long. Okay, now I'm going to read it here. At first glance, when we're looking at status correction to a government body or executive office, it may seem like a minor procedural action. You got to update records, you're clarifying facts of who and what you are, or as far as that name, as far as your duty to the name, your fiduciary duty, your obligation as the agent for that name, because everyone is already assumed to be a competent agent. But of course, there are those who get into the U.S. in different positions and they harbor on people's uneducatedness and the over complexities, I would say, of such systems. So when we examine this status correction process through the lens of history and the systemic influence, there's a structural and conceptual kinship with early US economic proposals that shaped the nation. So this including with Jefferson and Madison. Okay. So both status correction and what Jefferson did, in both cases, there was an initiator. You, the person, you initiate something. Jefferson initiated something. Those who offered something, the Federal Reserve offering this, the bankers who offered the Federal Reserve System as a central bank to the U.S., Those were the initiators. Okay, they began something. An initiator observes a flaw, observes a gap, or an inefficiency in a system. Okay, and we can probably all agree that there is definitely inefficiencies in the system because we're all supposed to already have our. There should already be an easy access to the credit, unlimited credit that we all have, that even an established nation has because it's made by people. But we have to deal with automated dependency, codependency, old, outdated automated codependency. And even if it's updated, it's still a codependency on a technological or automated system that is not going to be perfect. That's why we all have to have our own due diligence and come to comprehend what is actually going on, all right, in the world of commerce. What are the inalienable rights that we all have to our life, to land, freedom, the sea, the air? And then when it comes to commerce, what we are able to create, how we're able to do it, and how we gain access to this representation of our value that we call money. And all money, as we know, is credit. In the 1790s, Hamilton noticed that the young US, we're going to go to Hamilton for a moment, right? Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one who offered, he's one of the people who went and offered oh yeah, he was the one who proposed the first bank of the US to centralize it. So in the 1790s, he noticed that the young US was young at that point, had fragmented state debts, right? Inconsistent currency, fragile credit systems. Now, during the Panic 1907, J.P. Morgan, one of like financiers like him, recognized that banks were on the verge of collapse, threatening national economic stability. So when we do status correction today, citizens are identifying errors, inconsistencies in official records, regulations, or communications. Okay. So it seems localized, a small procedural correction, it may seem, but they directly affect the integrity of broader systems. Governance, finance, legal recognition, even though you already have your lawful recognition, okay, by divine truth, by divine law. So the parallel is that both of these things involve a diagnosis phase, right? The diagnosis comes with understanding how commerce is done in the US, international, national, what are the laws that are guiding it. So when someone makes a proposal, after identifying the issue, next you're formulating your situation. So both Jefferson and Madison believed in the people working with their own credits, okay, essentially. So let me put it here into words. It describes let me see, Jefferson, we're reading here. So I like the way it was put here. Well, that's the best way because Jefferson understood what credit is, and we all got credit. I was looking for the exact wording, but I'll just summarize it. Jefferson understood that everyone has credit. So Jefferson understood everyone is responsible for making their own credit and has that power, and not to put that power into one organization or centralized organization. All right. So going back to drawing the connections between the correctors and Jefferson, both basically are offering solutions to a centralized authority of finance. Okay, we'll put it that way, designed to correct, stabilize, or improve systemic integrity. Okay. And if you really look at it, when you try to open your own bank, an example of this is that if you try to open your own bank with the US, you have a partnership that gets established with the already established banks, right? And then you get bonuses, right, for completing certain operations. Okay, just like in network marketing. Okay, so in essence, the banking systems are like network marketing. Okay, difference is that there is a central authority versus anyone who actually sees network marketing and comprehends how credit, lines of credit can actually help your business and the infinite credit that we essentially all are, as I've mentioned in my videos, and how that ties into your business entity. Those who see that and understand that will see that, oh, okay, in network marketing, everyone can be top dog. Okay. It's just you have this person who's managing it. All right. But you essentially can manage it yourself. So what we're doing and what status correctors are doing is basically getting away from that codependency of a centralized organization to try to get something done for them, okay? Or to go through long drawn out processes in order to get something done. Now, some status correctors aren't even aware of internal tokens. Actually, some are, but some are not. Some are still learning, okay? Or internal credit systems, internal accounting, internal ledger, private internal accounting, private internal ledgers. And as we know, money is just an agreed thing. Okay. It's a unit that comes from an infinite credit unit, as I call it, ICUs. And then this ICU, okay, is what we all have. We all have infinite value. Nature has infinite value. So, of course, it will be represented in these economies that we create, that anyone can create. So sending these status corrections, these involve a solution that is upward from the individual or group level to the centralized authority that can implement systemic change. And remember, when we say authority, we're not talking about authority over your life. We're talking about authority over the business that is called the United States government because it was made by the people who made it. So obviously they're going to have authority over it because they made it. Okay? They made it. But that doesn't mean you don't have authority over yourself. You don't have authority over your life. Okay, that's already implied, but some people do the status correction as an extra step because they see this other side in the US. Okay, and they're like, well, you know what, if it wasn't for, there's a side of them that basically says, well, if it wasn't for where I'm born, and I wouldn't even know this if it wasn't for these up and downs. So there's a kind of appreciation that they have, that they're willing to still do business with the US. Okay, cool. There's a lot of good and lights. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of shadowy things. All right. But there are those who just walk in the balance in between it all, and they see the good and they know that their power is, and they believe in themselves. There's a flow of influence. This is the other common thing that they have in common, status correctors and Jefferson. Okay. The flow of influence. We kind of basically just talked about that. You have a central organization that creates a nation. The nation creates an economy. And within the economy, the nation creates a bank for the economy, creates a banking system for the economy, and then has people who can voluntarily, because you are a volunteer of the system, participate. But you don't have to, but you can. All right. And you can choose when and when not to participate. Okay. Like I said before, those natural rights, those are inalienable rights. No system can take it away from you. This is national, international, and divine law. Okay. Something that doesn't need paperwork. The paperwork, like the Constitution and all these other things, are and the things created by people that are written to protect these divine things. Those are just like extra shields, as I have mentioned before in my previous videos. Those are like secondary shields, third shields. Your primary shield is the truth of life, connected with nature. Also, a reminder again, remember, animals are friends, not food. Okay? Protect nature, and nature will protect you. Live with nature. You can still do business and be nomadic. Live with nature. Trust me, living with nature is way more better. And I am working on, as a side note, I am working on a part of the project. The mega project is to have these a certain kind of mobile camping unit, but it's a vehicle. and you could get in and out. Some are going to be on the land, some are going to be on the sea, some are going to be in the air. All right. And some are going to be multifaceted. So, of course, I'm very serious about this stuff. I put in the work every day. And if it wasn't for the way I've come to change my lifestyle to be with nature while still doing work, I wouldn't be able to handle the amount of things I'm able to handle. I wouldn't even remember to mention this, knowing my old self or knowing what I've developed myself from or how much I have developed. So the other connection that these status correctors have with the Jefferson is the intent, stability, and integrity. The ultimate shared purpose is stabilizing a system and preserving trust. See? So if we're given these socials, these certificates, these estates, there is a kind of trust, almost you could say a blind, maybe not too well calculated trust, but hey, if it was done in good faith, as many say, and as it is said in law, well, if it was done with good faith to the best of their ability, then okay, there's no bad intention, but that doesn't mean that there weren't any bad intentions hidden. Nonetheless, here we are. Still, everything has culminated to this point where people are regaining their power and starting to do these things like status corrections, opening their own banks, opening their own communities, establishing their own nations, etc., tribes, etc., etc. Okay. Now, early financial, the ultimate shared purpose is stabilizing the system, preserving trust. You do this with early financial offers, stabilize national. See, early, what they haven't, my bad. What they have in common: the early financial offers stabilized national credit, currency value, and public confidence in institutions. What is the U.S. and many other nations? They are institutions. Modern status corrections stabilize administrative integrity. When you are working with accounting or managing a nation or a community or a tribe, that is an administration position. Okay? This is why in the private and public sector, you still have very similar things. It's just the private, like that, the private, as it says, as is in the word, is private. In other words, it's you. So you can still do business with the U.S. and other nations and still be private, or you can be public. All right, or you can be private and public. And most businesses are private and public. They have a private side, just like every individual. You have a private side that is, when we say private, private is to say that you have a part of your life and your economic life that is self established, private. Your money, your credit, and your representations, and whatever currencies you create, that is private. Your dealings with the US or other nations, private. But for other people to know as well, now that's public. For other people to get involved, that becomes public. But you can still have other people involved publicly, generally speaking, and still have their private. And that's why laws on a national and international scale protect the human and separate naturally anyone who's actually competent to read it, including any, especially when it comes to corrupt individuals who act under color of law as judge or whatever. Anyone who's competent to read will know that, okay, there is this private side that is protected from this public slash private entity. Okay. So in both cases, the actor functions as steward of systemic health, identifying risk, proposing solutions, and ensuring they are incorporated into the central framework. Okay. So Jefferson and Madison's visions, it basically limited centralized power. They believed that economic and governmental systems should not concentrate authority in one centralized institution. Local autonomy, self-governance. Jefferson favored state level or community level control. Notice the word community level control over banks and finance rather than a single national bank. So let me re-say that in case it sounded like I was saying level, state or community level over banks and finance, like or superseding. No, what it's saying is Jefferson favored state level or community level control over banks and finance. Basically, you, the people, controlling your banking and your financing rather than a single national bank trying to control and administer all of it. Okay. Transparency and public accountability, Madison and Jefferson were weary of elite control over national money, emphasizing that the people or their local representatives should guide decisions. Okay. Now, of course, you have local representatives, but even they falter as well. Why? Because we're still going back to one person. It's like it's like I've said in my videos. You have this one organization establishing itself, a nation. Or let's just say you are a tribe of people and you invite other people. It's like a tribe. We can say that. It's like a tribe. So the US is like this tribe, right? It creates this tribe and it invites other people to be part of the tribe. And it's managing things for the tribe people. But the tribe people also have the same power and freedoms and abundance that that tribe called the US already has, or America. We'll just call it America, right? So what happens is when those people within the tribe forget about that same power, now it becomes overbearing that not even an automated technological system can keep up with, not even AI. Okay? Think about that. Not even AI. Why? Because it's simply too much for one system to try to handle everything for everyone. And this is why many people favor peer to peer transactions. And believe it or not, peer to peer transactions are not something that is new to crypto space. Peer to peer has been happening for a while, has always happened. Peer to peer has always happened. Peer to peer dealings has always happened. Uh, Some people say even that crypto is still a centralized banking system. So then, how do you decentralize? By reassuming the central position, each and every single person. Now, when that happens, some people will say, well, then what currency do we use? You call it whatever you want. How do we measure it? Well, that's where it gets a little technical, right? How do we measure it? What are you measuring it by? What are you valuing these currencies or these products and services and these dealings by? Are you valuing it because you want to make more of it, of that currency, whether it's dollar or crypto, whatever? Or are you valuing it because of how it helps you accomplish and enjoy your life and remain creative? I think the second part is the most important part. Wouldn't y'all agree? So if people have their own currencies, what if we all gave it a name? What if we just call it ICU? Because ICUs are generally, what everyone and every currency that exists and every fiat currency exists. ICU and all these currencies and fiat currencies come from this thing called credit. All right. And credit is not a number thing, credit is value. Okay. So nature's credit is that nature is abundant. All you have to do is plan. And this is also why this truth, and realizing this truth, is also why many people are returning to a self sustaining life. It's funny that people like to say the Simpsons predicted the future, but I say Ghibli predicted a better future with its solar punk themes. Because that's where people are moving back into a world, into the real world. And then now the question is, well, what do we do with money? What does that mean for money itself and finance? It simply means one thing: you could just turn it into a game, like a game where it doesn't determine the quality of your life and what you can do. Literally, this is what the mega project is also part of: the combat sports area. You can turn it into a game. So when you earn credits after playing, like, let's say, paintball or airsoft or racing, you can use it to customize and That's an infinite creative thing to do because customization is infinite. Customization is infinite. At the end of the day, what people do and make business, what is it for? Because you want to expand, you see potentials to grow a passion, to share your passion, and you want to share it, and people want to share it through their businesses and grow it in their businesses. We can all do that without having to make money be the determining factor behind it. Self-efficiency and self-sustainability truly is the truth of life, love included. Energy, electricity. When people think about electricity, I've said it in previous videos, and I'm gonna say it again. You can make an earth battery, and if you know how to amplify, you can take a small amount of energy, amplify it, and you're good. And it reloops itself. You can reloop it back into itself, so it's an enclosed cycle. Just like when you plant a garden of food and you water it, you have your food, you have your plant medicines, your herbs. Okay, you water it. Well, you're gonna get natural rain. So you get and then you store some of that rain, then reuse it, and you have yourself a self-efficient enclosed loop that is in harmony with the ecosystem. And when you step back at it, it really is like a big giant web. And the only central authority is the divine realm, which is Earth. And we are the stewards and protectors and guardians. Okay. So I'm not going to read the rest. I think pretty much you guys can get the gist of it. I'll just read that the key takeaway here is that a status correction, when it comes to status correction, at least the key takeaway when it comes to status correction, is that it's not just an administrative update. It's a small scale, bottom up solution, bottom up. Because for many people, they feel they're at the bottom. Well, yeah, you technically are at the bottom, but you've always been on the top. You just don't know about it, and you can do it and regain it through status correction or just working with other people. But see, some of those people are still connected with that organization called the U.S. Many of us still are, but that doesn't mean we don't have the other side. That doesn't mean that's the other side was gone somehow. Okay. And what that does is that it balances systemic stability with local, individual, I would add, local and individual accountability, aligning with the early ideals of decentralization, transparency, and prudence. Reminds me of the word jurisprudence. All right, y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. Feel free to share and subscribe if you want to. Share it, share it, share it, because this is super important to know. We have to be able to understand what is actually going on. And it's actually much more simpler than we think. It seems complicated because we're depending upon one group to do something. Okay? Not realizing that we are the group. We are the people. We are the organization. We are the nations of the world. Namaste, y'all. Peace.